Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are on the Brink, downtown Prince George. And again, a beautiful day in Prince George. It's early April. We still had a little bit of snow for our international viewers, but we hope that's all behind us now, and the spring will be here. We have a very interesting guest today, and she is a friend as well, Jamie Rivard. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
So we have known each other probably for 3-4 years or so at least.
Yeah, it's been a while. 4 or 5 maybe even now.
Maybe even 4 or 5.
Yeah. It's been a while.
So tell us a bit about your past.
For sure. I grew up in southern Saskatchewan, kind of like in a few different really little towns. So I grew up in like Ogama, which is like 200 people. And then I lived in Moose Jaw for a little bit. And then I really grew up in Weyburn.
And what is the closest big city?
Regina. So we are like an hour, it's in Canada, so like you don't say kilometers. Like I was an hour south of Regina.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was 1 hour south of Regina in Weyburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you grew up, and you stayed there
For high school. Yeah.
to high school, and then where did you go from there?
Well, I met my husband when I was 16, and he is from Vernon, and he was kind of out visiting his...
Vernon is in BC.
In British Columbia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in Weyburn visiting his dad, and I met him one summer, and we started dating. And so when I graduated high school from Saskatchewan, I hopped in my car after my final exams and drove to Vernon to be with him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so as soon as I
his name
could.
is Josh Rivard.
Yeah, Joshua, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was when?
I graduated, well, I met him in 2002, so it's been 20 years now. And then I graduated in 2004, and we got married a couple months after I graduated high school.
Yeah.
When I was 18.
When you were still in Vernon?
Yeah, well, I couldn't get married in BC because I wasn't old enough.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you have
You
to
mean
be...
at 18 you're not old enough to?
No.
I had never heard about that.
Yeah, it's age of majority. So we actually had to go to Calgary to get married. And it was really funny because I was so young, and I just phoned a pastor up in Calgary, and I was like, hey, like this is our situation, will you marry us? And he's like, sure. And I wasn't expecting him to say yes. And then he did, and he's like, when do you want to do it? And it was like Thursday, and I was like, oh, how's Monday? And he's like, great, see you Monday.
Is that the conversation with Josh, or is that the conversation with the guy that you want to get
The
married?
pastor.
Oh, the pastor, okay.
Yeah, and so I just got off the phone, and I was like, oh my goodness, I gotta get a dress. I ran to the mall. I told Josh, I was like, you gotta take work off. I booked off work, and then I forgot to phone my parents until like Saturday. And I was like, I'm getting married if you want to come. So.
How many siblings do you have?
I have an older sister and 2 older brothers, so there's 4 of us in total. Yeah, none of them made it.
Oh no, no wonder, right?
It was poorly planned. Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like when I got married, the first time. I got married in Watson Lake. I was more than 18, obviously. I was 27.
Yeah.
And my then wife, Eve was probably 19 or so. And so we got married in Watson Lake. And I had just bought a motel there.
Yeah.
And we were staying in a motel, and I was running a sawmill there, and and then the motel had a little bar that was very much hands-on. Yeah. So we got married. Her parents were there. We hired a justice of the peace, Chappie Chapman, and we had to pay him $5 to get married. So quickly I ran up to the house, got married. It was her parents were there and her sister.
Yeah.
And then I got married, and all of that took 15 minutes, then run back to work, and that was the end of that,
Yeah,
so.
it was the same. We drove back and went back to work the next day. No honeymoon, nothing.
No. And it was, just like that, your whole life changes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we moved in together and started kind of planning, but I don't know. I think we were always on the same page really young. We both weren't so concerned about the wedding. We just more wanted to build a life together.
Yeah.
And get started on that. And we had all these plans for things that we wanted to accomplish. So.
Yeah. So now you were in Vernon.
Yep.
So how then did you end up in Prince George?
It's kind of a long story.
Yeah, tell me it.
So Joshua's dad owned a trailer court in Saskatchewan.
A what?
A trailer court.
Okay.
So his dad and my dad were like conspiring together to get us to come back to Saskatchewan. And they're like, oh, I'll let you build a little shack on my property.
Yeah.
And we'll give you guys all the building material.
Right.
So we left Vernon, went back to Weyburn. We built a little shack there. And then Joshua worked on getting his electrical apprenticeships done. So he got his journeyman. And we had both kids. But we didn't want to stay in Weyburn. I'm not in love with the prairies. Like there's no water and there's no trees or anything.
No.
But we wanted to have land, so we looked at like really cheap places to live, and we found Thunder Bay. So we
Thunder Bay,
Yeah.
even further east.
even further. So we bought this acreage that was like a repossessed house in Thunder Bay, and it was 165 acres. It was needed so much work. So we packed up out of Weyburn after 5 years, moved to Thunder Bay, and my husband was doing the electrical, and we flipped this house. And we didn't like Thunder Bay either.
Now, he had studies to be an electrician?
Yeah, he's a journeyman electrician.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were out there, and I was like, you know what? Like, we had both the kids at the time. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to go back to school and get my degree. And
Did you have kids then already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I wanna go back and get my degree. And
The
he was
degree in what?
in business, I was thinking, because I used
Yeah.
to work at the bank when I was
So
younger.
an MBA or a
Bachelor's of Commerce.
Bachelor of Commerce? Yeah.
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 And so I was talking with him, and I was like, I want to do my bachelor's, and
You know pretty much what you wanted to do, right? It sounds to me like you had it all planned and say, hey, this is where we're going, and that's
Yeah.
where we're going, right?
yeah. And so I was like, I applied to Lakehead, and I got accepted. And then Josh was like, you know what? Like, I'm actually not happy being an electrician. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I want to be a doctor. And I was like, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So we figured we had to sell the acreage no matter what, because we were so far out of town. And so we figured we really missed our family. So we came back to British Columbia. But we found
To Vernon?
we looked at places, and
Yeah.
we looked for a place that had the programs that we wanted. So
Yeah.
a commerce degree and then do medical school.
Access to a university, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and had a similar economy to Thunder Bay,
Yeah.
because I wanted the housing market to be similar.
Yeah.
So we moved to Prince George.
Yeah.
Sight unseen. We never been here. We applied to the university. We both got accepted, and we just moved here.
When was that, Jamie?
2012.
2012?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when our kids were 4.5 and 2.5, we moved here.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah, and then we went to university together, my husband and I, because we figured out that the government would actually pay for our kids to go to daycare
Yeah.
if we had no income. So we went
And
to
daycare was at the university?
Yeah, at the university.
Very nice. That is University of Northern British Columbia, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the kids went to daycare there, and then we both did our bachelor's together. And
Both did your Bachelor of Commerce together.
well, I did a Bachelor of Commerce, and he did a Bachelor in Biomolecular Chemistry, a Bachelor of Science.
So is that a pre-course towards becoming a medical doctor? Or?
No, it's a really hard course that like a lot of people will take because I guess it's like looked at pretty good when you're trying to get into medicine because it's really hard, biochem.
So what attracted him to that to get to the doctor's degree? So as one stepping stone, that's why he did the hard part?
Yeah, so you have to have a bachelor's to get into medical school.
Yeah.
And I think with him, like he's grew up on welfare. His mom was a single mom with 5 kids in Vernon. And he didn't really have the confidence to pursue post-secondary education. So I think after we got married, had the kids, he was a journeyman electrician and been working for about 10 years. I think at that time, he's like, you know what, like I got the confidence now, I can actually do more than this.
So where did that come from, the confidence, or initially the lack thereof? Was it his environment or his upbringing that, yeah?
Yeah, I think for university, it was like money was always, they never had money. Like they were on welfare. Right. So how would you even pay for it?
Yeah.
And like there was his mom had gone to school, but like none of his siblings had. There wasn't really that example or push. No one really
Right.
pushed them for it.
Right.
There was no prep in high school to like, what classes do I need? It just wasn't, I guess, a priority in his family. And then...
So did a lot of that come out of the relationship? Because you're quite driven in terms of where you want to go, and the two of you together kind of made sense that way, maybe? Is it?
I guess he says like he's very introverted, and he has a hard time with change, and he's really routine. Where with me, he says I'm really adaptable.
Yeah.
Like I can just go do anything and I just adapt to it. And so I've gotten him out of his shell, and I guess he's been able to accomplish things he wasn't expecting because of that.
Yeah.
And I was always there to support him.
Yeah. And he is bright, obviously, as you are. And so then you go to university and take your commerce degree and the Bachelor of Commerce. That takes about 4 years, right?
Yep, normally takes about 4 years.
But just to take in a situation that is not normal.
Yeah, so because we had the 2 kids and then we were both in school, I wanted to get done my degree as fast as possible and get working. So I did it in 2 years and 8 months. So I took like 7 classes.
That's
like
unbelievable.
A semester, yeah.
Because that's not an easy degree to get by any stretch of the imagination. If you're a normal individual, it's not easy, and to do it in 2 years and 8 months.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't. I guess if you're really focused on it and you're really organized, it wasn't too bad. And I had like a lot of really good friends in school,
right,
that like helped me lots, and they knew I had the kids. And so because I had the kids, I had to get all my homework done at school, because basically when I got home, I had no opportunity to do it. So I was just really focused. And then I got all my homework done as soon as it was assigned, because I couldn't wait for the due date just in case something happened with the kids. I had to have it done.
Yeah.
So I was always just on top of everything and got all done and organized. But I remember like one class, I had like one of my law professors. He's like, you can't do this, Jamie. Like taking 7 courses at once is crazy. And I remember like crying. I was like, I hope I can do it.
Yeah.
And it was fine. It was totally fine. I kept like an A average. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were driven because you had so many things on the go, right? And so many things that were so critically important in your life.
Yeah, and I really just needed to get out and support my husband so he could go in for medicine and then support the kids too.
So now you were taking that, it took you 2 years and 8 months. Then you went into the workplace and got a job. Now, what was Josh doing at that point? Was he already in? Now, University of British Columbia, Northern British Columbia, has a medical school that started how long ago? Just before Josh got into it, a couple of years before that?
It was quite a few years. It's been in place. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while.
But relatively speaking, new to Prince George for sure.
Yeah.
And then, so he got into it, and how long does that take? Because...
Yeah, so he got in to the program early, so he actually didn't have to finish his bachelor's. He had 90 credits, which is what the basic requirement is to get in.
Yeah.
So he got in...
Not easy, right?
No, it's not easy. It's really competitive.
Yeah.
And so he got in after 3 years of doing his bachelor's, and I had already graduated university when we found out he got in. Yeah, and then he went to Vancouver for 6 months to do first semester when he first got in. Yeah. And then it's 4 years of med school, and then it's residency after that. So you pick an elective, or a specialty that you want to do.
Yeah.
And then those vary between 2 to 7 years.
Now, I always remember that he got in the first 4 years, and then he had to get a residency.
Yeah.
And I virtually remember when you were so concerned about it, because you were worried that he wouldn't have to go into residency here.
Yeah.
but elsewhere. But fortunately, he did, right?
Yeah, he placed in Prince George for his family practice residency. So I was like super thankful. Yeah, and he's going to be finishing next summer. He'll be all done.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been a long 10 years. It's been busy. It's been a busy 10 years.
Well, a busy 20 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Really?
it has been 20 years now. Yeah, it goes by so fast. I wasn't expecting it.
It does. It does. So we got to know each other, how long ago?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And you were putting together the...
Autism Walk.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so when I was in university, my son was diagnosed at 3.5 with having autism. So it's like, man, like we had so much stuff going on already, and then we got the diagnosis as well. And I remember I was just crying. I think I cried for like a week when they told me, because I was like, I thought he was so chill. Like, it's so funny because like I remember him being like a year old, playing in his room with his trains for like all day, and he just like watched Thomas the Train over and over and over. I was like, this kid is awesome. Like, he's the chillest kid ever. And I never picked up on that there was something like that wasn't typical.
How would you?
Yeah, and I had Ellie, and I knew his language was behind, so I was like, okay, he's not talking. But yeah, so we got him diagnosed, and then he was autistic.
So then you got very involved with other people and creating awareness around it.
Yeah, and we started doing the Autism Walk with Jordan Oliver in the Northern Interior Autism Society, and we'd have that annual walk every year.
Extremely successful.
Yeah, it was so good. Like the last year before COVID, we had like about 500 people coming, 400 or 500 people. It was great.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a really good event, and I know I was really sad, like just telling Jordan that I was leaving, but it was a really good event, and it was nice that you were there and you always supported it, and you made sure like we had like goodie bags to give out for the kids and balloons, and it was like a really family focused event. Yeah, and it was interesting because like even though I was like in the autism community, I miss like my daughter is also autistic, but she wasn't diagnosed until grade 5, so just a couple years ago.
How old is she now?
She's 14.
Yeah.
And she was diagnosed in grade 5, so she would have been like, what, 10, 11?
I remember that.
Yeah. I know, and I was still sad. I was like, I felt, I think, guilty because I was like, why didn't I pick up on it? Like, I thought it was just anxiety, and she's quirky. But
well, all the emotions go with it, right?
I felt so guilty about it because I was like, oh my goodness, like how did I miss that she was autistic too? And it's just because girls and boys do present really differently.
How did you deal with that then? Did you get counseling or did you?
Yeah, because she was older, it was harder for her than it was for Gabe, because with him, he always was autistic, right? He was always new.
Right.
With her coming in grade 5, it was like, well, wait, like, what do you mean I'm different all of a sudden? And she's starting to go through puberty, which is already awkward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got her like counseling at school. I had got her in with a child psychologist, Jonathan Thursfield. He's amazing.
Yeah.
For monthly visits, and I got her in with behavioral intervention, which is with every autism program that you have to do. And I just tried my best to support her as much as possible because it's really hard to go through puberty and start that process and
already
be a girl
on its
and
own,
then
right?
And then you're like, and you're autistic.
Yeah.
FYI, just so you know. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness. I felt really bad for her because she's trying to figure out who she was at that time, and then to have this on top of it, it's a lot. So
how did that, for people in general, including myself, I know about it, but not really as you live it and go through it. How does it evolve other remedies, or how do you manage dealing with that as they go from initially notice them and being active and then all of a sudden finding this out? How do you go forward from there?
Yeah, it's definitely like I had to change the way I parented my kids and develop a lot more patience, because You know, Gabe, when he was younger, he had to walk around the pool like 10 times before he could get in the pool. And if you have a typical functioning child, you're like, that's super, like, why are we doing that? Just get in. Like, what's the big deal? And he would just like have a temper tantrum. So you're like, oh my goodness, it's a sensory thing. Like, he just needs to get used to the environment before he can get in. And you start to kind of get more understanding. You're like, okay, it's not a temper tantrum. He's not a bad kid. He's just having a hard time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of noise. It's super busy. Like, you got to let him get used to it first.
How old is Dave now?
Gabe, he's 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 12 now, and Ellie's 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just a lot of like prepping them. And I think because Gabe's autistic and I always kind of have been really routine anyway, and Ellie kind of fell into it. Everyone's like, oh, it must be so different or hard. I'm like, not really.
Right.
I'm kind of used to it.
Well, yeah, because it's part of your life, right?
Yeah, like planning everything out, planning dinners out for the week, getting everything organized, doing things at the same time, prepping them before we do anything, giving them mornings before we go, laying out their clothes.
So how is he going to school?
Yeah.
How are the schools adapting to, people that challenged by autism or other things like that?
The kids, when they went to Foothills Elementary, was super good. The support worker, Darlene Hurd, there, she's amazing and was so good with the kids and made sure they had a safe room and they could go there at any time and get help. The high school, going to DB Todd, has been a bit harder because the teachers change. And there's so many kids that they actually didn't know Ellie was like autistic for the first few months. I just kept getting calls all the time. Like, the teachers were phoning me being like, she's not doing this, or she's on their phone, or she's having a meltdown, or she needed to leave. And I was like, yeah, man, she's autistic. They're like, what? I was like, do you guys like not have her file or anything? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So you have to I think coming from Foothills, where it was like we had such a good program in place, to going to DB Todd, I expected it to transfer and it didn't. So I didn't advocate enough for her.
Yeah.
With the teachers to make sure they knew she's autistic. She needs support. She needs to have some understanding in place that she's not just like every other kid in this class. She has special needs.
But there are, I don't know if there is a percentage, but there are numerous people and kids that are autistic. And so what is something changing now in the schooling system that responds more proactive to them in terms of working with them?
Yeah, I think it comes down because the public school system and the budgeting constraints that they do have already, it's hard to get the support that all the kids need. So basically what they do is they because every child that's special needs has funding that comes with them, and it gets thrown into a big pot. So kids that are higher needs get more of those funds allocated, where if your child's more high functioning like mine, you don't get as much of that funding allocated towards them, even though they might bring $20,000 with them. They may only get $3,000 if that's what's required. So I understand it's a juggling act, and you really got to be the squeaky wheel if you want to get more support for them.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, well, it's tough, right? And then, so as you go forward, though, just to better understand it for our guests as well, is that the prognosis is what it is. And they can function in life in a different way, or in same as how does that look in terms of?
So it's a spectrum disorder. So it's really, it varies from person to person. Like, my daughter's more high functioning than my son is.
Yeah.
And she's not as severely autistic as he is, if that makes sense. It's just a little bit difference between them.
Right.
So as far as everyday life and what they'll be able to accomplish with work and stuff, I don't know. I think it's the planning of me where I'm I don't know. I'm just planning on them living with me forever. And then if it's better than that, if they do more than that, then that's so good for them. But that's all my hopes is. It's just they're happy, you know, they can live with me forever and they just like have a good life. And I'm hoping that my husband and I can build something for them for work, and that they can just kind of, maybe we'll have a family company and they can be in that.
Yeah.
Just so that we can help make sure they have all the right supports in place for them in the working environment. Because I think there's only a few employers that really focus on hiring people that have disabilities and then really support them how they need to be supported so that they're successful in that job.
Yeah. Don't you think that things, compared to, from my experience, from what I know and seen, that as time goes forward, society at large becomes more understanding of the some situations like autism, but also other ones that people that are basically slow learners or ADHD, like I am. It has always an element of stigma attached to a certain extent, and all of those things. Have you seen my book? And
I've seen it.
I gave you a copy of it, right?
No, I don't have a copy. You'll have to give me one.
Before we go, you're gonna get your copy. I always felt, like ADHD, I had to talk about it more publicly, and and the challenges of being a slow learner, and so I wrote a book about it that will come out July the 8th, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it also deals with the element of saying, okay, a whole different type of a book, in the sense that it interviews about 15 different people, and then taking my own story, and then there's intermingled into the book that deals with people mainly ADHD, and also in terms of new approaches to then, okay, so now we know what it has. It has less stigma. That there is, it will never go away, but still, it is better understood. And now the next thing is, what do we do with it in terms of the educational system, or that is not always there for it, and it involves some of the things that you're doing right now at BCIT, for instance, has done a study on a whole new approach to different forms of learning and teaching.
Yeah, I think it's evolving, and I think people are definitely like a lot more aware of, I guess, like different struggles that people have than they used to be. I know, like my nephew, he's 7, and he just got diagnosed with severe ADHD. And he's been having just the hardest time in school, like with bullying, and the teachers don't know what to do with him. He's been sent home. Like, he's just having a hard go with it.
Yeah.
So I think now that he has the diagnosis, hopefully, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law will have an easier time getting the right supports in place for him.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really that awareness piece. It's just takes so long. Even just the wait list I think they had was like 2 years or 18 months just to get him diagnosed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting better for sure. It's just, I guess it's never as quick as I want it to be. I want it to be amazing. I don't want my kids to have any hard times.
Yeah, but at least it's going in the right direction to a certain extent. And so I wanted to talk to everybody about that. That's how I know you. And and obviously seeing your ups and downs, with all of this, and obviously being so much part of the group, the Autism Society here, it's very important to us. So tell me a little bit about, so you are a banker.
Yep.
And
so exciting.
You became a banker when?
Actually, before I had my kids, when I was like 20, I worked at RBC as a teller.
Yeah.
Back in Weyburn, Saskatchewan. And I loved it. I was like, man, this is awesome. And the girl...
What do you like about it?
I think it's because I'm really organized person, and it's like incredibly structured, and...
It comes natural to you, eh?
Yeah, and it just makes, I don't know, and I always liked math. I was in math club in grade 9. So I don't know, I loved it. It makes sense to me. And it was like super organized. Like, it's like, here's your goals, here's the corporate ladder. It was just very structured.
Yeah.
And it just made sense. And the girls told me then, if you go to university, do your Bachelor of Commerce in finance, and then do something else unrelated, just in case you hate banking. So I did finance and HR.
That laid out the path.
Yeah, and that laid it out. And so when I went to UNBC, I went and I did finance and HR. I did a double major. And then I went into banking. I went back to RBC as a teller. And then I did personal banking there for about a year. And then I got hired at TD doing small business.
Yeah, so that's fairly sizable because you then became a loan officer, and you graduated through the bank quite rapidly because I've been kind of following you, obviously,
Yeah.
and so and where you're dealing really, in a role that deals with business issues and problems and all the things around it, on a daily basis.
Yeah, you make it sound so much more complex than it is. Like, I think everyone thinks it's really complex, but like really, I just need to understand my part of it. Like, you know how you run your business and you know everything about it. So I'm really just a piece of that puzzle, and like, I'm supporting you. I can bring my tools and like my resources and help you reach your goals. Yeah. Like, I don't need to know everything about your company, but I just need to know my stuff really well and make it easy for you to understand.
You see, to somebody like me that, when I started my business, I got ADHD, right? So I failed grade 3. Nobody fails grade 3, right? And then I failed grade 7 3 times.
Really?
And then they said, that's enough of that. So what do we do with them? Well, I was 14, they either had to send me to the school of mentally challenged or otherwise get me a job. So and I started training. So my dad, the school came out, I had now failed for the 3rd time at the end of May, and then there would be 4 weeks holiday for all the kids. And not for me. That weekend we went to the store, we found a set of coveralls. I was really small for my age, and so a friend of my dad opened the store, and they really didn't have any coveralls that fitted me, so I had the oversized, I had them all rolled up, and the crotch was hanging by the knees. That's modern now, but it wasn't then.
Yeah.
And that's how I went to work, and got trained as a furniture maker.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then, so I did that, and then I was in the Air Force for 2 years. I was drafted. And then, I went out of the Air Force. I again worked in the lumber industry, and then got hired by the largest importing company in Holland of lumber, and ended up in that auditing team. Don't ask me how, but every time somebody said something, it's because of his dad. Made Brink's son.
Oh,
And
really?
I wanted to be me. And then I thought I had failed. So I always had that feeling I had failed. And so I wanted to start new. And I took $150, didn't even tell my parents about it until 3 weeks before I emigrated to Canada. We were liberated by the Canadians April the 12th, 1945. And I considered them, I wanted to go to the land of my heroes.
Yeah, that would have been my grandpa. He was in that war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so very important to me. And anyway, so then I came, and then my dream was to build my own lumber mill.
Yeah.
And I left with $150, 1 suitcase, 1 set of clothes, and a couple of books. And then where did I go? To British Columbia. That's where all the lumber is. And then in Vancouver, I met a German fellow that I could speak some German. I couldn't speak any English. I didn't have a job, didn't know a soul. And he said, I told him what I wanted to do. He said, Prince George. They're building sawmills and pulp mills.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted. I came off the bus here. I had $25.47, no job. And then started as a cleanup man and a lumber pilot. And then after a year and a half, I was a superintendent of one of the larger mills. And then that's how I ended up in Watson Lake, Yukon. That didn't go fast enough for me, so then I got an opportunity to manage a mill in Watson Lake, Yukon, Watson Lake Lumber.
Yeah.
And I made a deal with them that, I would get 1/3 of the company if I managed it for 5 years.
Yep.
But I was staying in a motel, and then I have a natural instinct to be entrepreneurial. So the lady that owned the motel wanted to get out of it, so I thought, and I wanted to make monies, not run a motel necessarily, but it was undervalued,
Yeah.
build it up, sell it, so that I can start my own mill, right?
Yeah.
And I did that, and so
And I just did that. It's
and-
just you're
and-
just so nonchalant, and I just did that.
well, the point what I was making is that then, there is a mystery around banks. So every time I went to the bank, I needed money. I never quite knew how it all kind of worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then I left Watson Lake and I came to Prince George, and same Royal Bank that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I worked here for 2 years, and then I built a business plan for this lumber mill, this lumber remanufacturing plant, and I dropped it off at every single bank in town.
Yeah.
And then I did a pretty good job of it, and then they pretty much all turned me down, and then
Yeah.
at the end there were a couple left, one CIBC and the other was the Royal Bank, and CIBC, lukewarm. So then I had been at the Royal probably 12 times already, and but always I made sure that I didn't totally turn them off, and always made changes they suggested. But the underlying problem that I had lots of ideas but no money.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have $25,000 to start a lumber company.
Yeah.
How could you do it for $25,000? I leased a property, where I am now actually.
Yeah.
And so again, I asked to talk to the lender or the loan officer, and again told him in that particular case as to what changes I had made to the plan and this and that. And then he said, okay, let me talk to John, the manager. At that time, it was on the same level, all in the first level.
Yeah.
And John Weems, the manager, was sitting in the far corner.
Yeah.
And there were half walls in between, so I was sitting there, and he said, let me talk to John again. And so he went down there, and then I heard, all in the distance, give him the money, give him the money. So
That's how it's done.
I got my $25,000. I said, oh my God, now what? So that started Brink Forest Products and the Brink group of companies.
Yeah.
And, but there was always this understanding of how the banks work, what they need, what they require. It's always a certain mystique around it that the lay persons, especially ones with grade 3, no, I'm just joking, but,
Yeah.
but understanding how it all works, obviously since that time, we have built a company as 12 different companies and employ about 400 people, and things have changed. But
Now banks are coming to you, being like, "Hey,
yeah,
what's up?"
but still, I respect them a lot, and and we started understanding how they function and how they work, and they are a very critical part to a company that is growing up. So
Yeah. It was my favorite part. Like when I did small business, I got to meet like a lot more startups.
yeah,
And I was like, I liked listening to them and their stories and their ideas, and I would always try and make them fit in the banking box so
Yeah.
that I could get them where they wanted to go. Or I had a lot of connections like with Community Futures or the Business Development Bank as well. There's
Yeah.
with the Federal Bank. So that if it was outside the risk appetite of, one of the the top 5 banks,
Yeah.
then there's these other places that you could go as well. Because I never want to close the door on someone's dreams, but if it just didn't fit within a risk appetite of a certain structure, I was like, oh, you should try this place or that place.
Right,
These
right.
people are good, or credit unions are really good for this. Like if you need to do that, like they're
Yeah.
great. So I always liked listening to them and trying to get them in the right direction, and I'd always write everything out in huge emails. Probably, I don't know why, I write huge emails to people with lists in it because I'm like really organized. I'm like, okay, here's the list, and then you can check it off, everything that you need.
but that makes a difference too, Jamie. That's why you're so well suited for that particular role. You're knowledgeable.
Yeah.
You are sensitive to the knowledge that your client may have or opportunities that he may have, and looks at you guiding them really to where things work or where they would have challenges, or to how to make it work. So now you are at the TD, Toronto Dominion. You've been there for quite a while.
Yeah, 6 years now. I did 3 years in small business, and then I won an award. I went to Grand Cayman, and then
So
when
what did you get the award for?
I was like #1 performing person in my role in all British Columbia.
That's fairly significant.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But it's like, I think Northern BC and like Vancouver's eyes and stuff like that, it's like they didn't understand how big of a market it is up here, and it was just me. And like I was supporting Prince George, Quesnel, Williams Lake, I was supporting Whitehorse, Terrace, like I had so many
pretty big area.
Yeah. And so they're like, oh, like I tripled my goal every quarter. And they're like, oh, why are you tripling your goal? It's like, 'cause it's busy up here. And so they've actually added there's 3 people now that were in my old job because it was so busy. So that was really good to see.
But I found a lot of times is all the different banks that we've dealt with, all of them, all on good terms. We have good relationships with all of them now as well. But that every so often then, because of the growing fairly aggressively, it falls outside of the area that they can do. And then the other one is a people thing. We look very closely on the people that working with the bank and who are working with us as a team, who understand us, because if they don't, then we will have to move elsewhere, and we always do it with good terms. But our company cannot change. We must go forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's finding somebody, I guess, because everyone's like, well, why should I go with TD over RBC? And I said, honestly, it's a relationship.
Yeah.
You gotta go with who, because like we're all kind of the same. Like we all do the
Exactly.
same thing.
Yeah.
It just depends on the person that's working with you and if they can help you get to where you need to go and if you have a good relationship with them.
It's critical.
Yeah, because you talk with when you get to a certain lending level in certain companies like yours, you talk with your banker a lot.
Yeah.
About things, and you plan and you have reviews, and we're kind of part of this.
And you lay out a strategy as a corporation, is saying this is where we're going, and then at the same time you make sure credibility is critical always, and then having a solid record behind you. Like in my case, it's been 47 years that we built the company, and I'm a sole owner of the company. So what is your role now? You went from small business to where?
So commercial. So my lending went from like startups to $1 million. And then I went to commercial, which goes like from 500,000 to 25 million.
Yeah, that's
in lending. Yeah,
fairly significant.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting because I like deal with airports and regional districts and cities, and I deal with hospitals, and I deal, with trucking companies, logging I'm general industry, and I'm doing lots of stuff for the mine up north at the Red Chris mine. So a ton of mining equipment, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And in equipment, I can do like up to about 50 million.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and those things are huge. Like they're so expensive. They go underground.
So
crazy.
Why are you going to Vernon? Is that a better location for you in terms of your clientele, or is it?
So I actually got a new position within TD doing agricultural lending. So now I'll be doing commercial agriculture. So that's farm lending.
Right.
And so I'll be covering the entire BC interior now. But the concentration of clients are in the Okanagan with orchards and vineyards and all that, right?
Right.
A little bit of cattle, some dairy. And there's a little bit of cattle farms up here as well.
Right.
And we decided on Vernon because my husband's from there.
Yeah.
And his mother's quite elderly now. And then his twins there, his brother's there, my sister-in-law.
Yeah, a lot of family.
Everyone's there. And we've been up here, just us.
Yeah. So Chase, so when is he finished?
Next summer.
And so next summer, that means summer 23?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he would be finished in May or early?
May, June,
So
there.
does he already have an idea in mind? Where does he want to locate? And because it's pretty much his choice now, right? Because doctors are short no matter where you are.
Yeah, he's going to go, we obviously bought a house in Burness, and he's going to try and get some of his rotations down there, because you do rotations all over the province. So I'll be in Vernon with the kids.
So rotations is that?
You'll do like emergency rotation, family practice rotations, pediatric rotations in the hospital.
Is that all part of learning to become a specialist?
Yeah, he's doing family practice.
Yeah.
So they really put them through all the different specialties, I guess, so they can identify it and then
Yeah.
refer.
Yeah.
Because when you go to your family doctor, it's like, okay, I need to understand that this is something serious. This actually should go to like an oncologist or something like that,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a urologist, or
Yeah.
cardiologist. And so it's really getting to that identifying point.
Yeah.
So the family physicians and their training have to go through all the specialties.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they can be with them. It's usually 4 to 8 weeks on a
Okay.
rotation.
Yeah.
And they stay with them and they work that rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll have some rotations like in the Cusp and Vernon and Kelowna. So we'll see him, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be a hard year. I'm gonna miss him.
Initially,
Yeah.
but a good investment in the future, though.
Yeah. Yeah, once he's all done, we're hoping for him to start his own family practice in Vernon.
Right.
I've been taking a medical office assistant course at night so I can just help him manage his office.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then down the road, we're hoping to open a walk-in clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the plan. Always with these plans. That's the goal.
Well, you must have a plan, otherwise, the same that what I do. I want to go there. you
Yeah.
know, so-
I find if you don't have like concrete goals, and like I always like write mine down. Did you do that too? Like, did you write your goals down or have like a vision board, or how did you know where you wanted to be?
Right.
Like I do that. Do you do that?
Yeah, I do that in terms of that. I knew from a very young age, when I was 5 years old, and the Canadians liberated us. I knew someday I will go to Canada, the land of my heroes.
Yeah.
And then, when I was such a disaster in school, I kind of felt I had to start anew, and then I said, I'm going to build my own lumber mill,
Yeah.
and that,
What made you decide like a lumber mill though? Like, what made you decide lumber mill? You're like, that's just
because my grandfather was a master carpenter,
yeah.
and then my dad managed a small lumber mill
Oh, okay.
in Holland, and I loved lumber, and then I was trained as a furniture maker,
Yeah.
and and I loved work with my hands, and and lumber, and so that's to me was and then after my stint in the Air Force for 2 years, I worked for the largest importer of lumber in Holland, and somehow ended up in the auditing department. They had 32 subdivisions,
Yeah.
subsidiaries throughout Holland, where they did annual audits, and if there were problems or issues, they sent part of their team down. I was one of the team. So it really got me interested in solving problems and issues, which helped me immensely when I came here and started, Brink Forest Products on River Road.
Yeah.
I was doing everything. I was, setting up the planer. I was a welder. I built buildings. I'm a can-do guy. I'd done it all and did it all
Yeah.
by hand. And then at the same time, I'm very good at financials.
Yeah.
Amazingly. And then I'm also a good writer.
Yeah.
So and then obviously once I discovered, by pure coincidence that I had the ADHD, I walked into the store, I saw this book, Driven to Distraction. I looked at it when I was 58 years old, right on 4th Avenue here. I looked at it and I said, oh my God, that's me. And I bought the book and I wrote in the book
Yeah.
in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am, because
Yeah.
there was stigma attached. Because what am I going to do? Go to you as a bank and I say, I got a mental issue here. I want a loan,
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying. Mentally, I had these issues with it in terms of saying, I cannot tell anybody that I'm ADHD because that'd be a liability then.
Yeah.
Not now, but
They'll think less of you, or they
Yeah.
don't think that you'll be able to accomplish things. And I think failing in school, it would be hard. It would be hard going to somebody and being like, I'm going to be successful, and you, at such a young age, being told that you weren't. That would be really hard to get over.
Yeah, the interesting part about it, Jamie, was that in Holland, that if you want a career, that was the challenge that I had, is saying that in Holland, the first thing they ask you, well, where are your diplomas? Well, I don't have any. Here, when I came here off the bus with my $25.47 and started piling lumber and cleanup, man, nobody ever has asked me that.
Yeah, it was, well, even like in my parents, like they're in their 60s now, like my dad has grade 9 and my mom has grade 11, and it wasn't that big of a deal.
No.
My dad just went and worked for the railroad. Good enough.
Yeah, and then that's formal education. That doesn't mean life education is equally, if not more important than the formal one in a lot of cases. And,
I think, there's a lot of emphasis put on having like a bachelor's, and I think it's just kind of like weeding people out, because I meet people who have bachelor's, and, I've met people who just have high school or less, and they actually do better, like say in banking, for example, than someone that has a degree.
Exactly.
They just understand it. It doesn't really mean anything. Like, I guess it does, like you have a bachelor's and it means something, but it doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else.
It doesn't
or
define
smarter
you
yeah.
in any form or fashion, but in any event, that's why, I found that after I wrote the book, I'm going to grab a book here for you. And after I wrote the book Against All Odds, I'm going to sign it for you. I see it. I think I have a pen here.
Oh, nice.
And then I said, I have to talk about ADHD more. And so I incorporated it in my presentations that I made. And May of 2019, I got an honorary doctorate
I remember
from
that.
the University of British Columbia, and I incorporated it in my speech there. And
I remember I was going to start calling you Doctor.
IE
John.
right at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spelled the boy way, my name. I don't know why. My mom had to not pick feminine names. My sister's name is Toby. Like, it's not feminine either. And at work, I was actually it was nice that people started doing like those pronouns on their emails, because everyone thinks I'm a guy when they email me. I'm like, no, I'm a girl. So like my email has the tags on it now, so I'm a girl. Cute.
Oh, Jim. And
Sure.
the other one
Thanks so
is
much.
coming out July the 8th. And I'll make sure you get a copy of that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I should give you, did you want me to give you one for Chase too?
No, because
sure?
we'll be good with this. Because we just have like our library at the house.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this will be good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this. That's really nice of you. I really appreciate it.
Nice to be my guest.
Yeah, no, you didn't make me cry today? I think it's the first time. You always make me cry.
Yeah, I know, so.
It's the first time you haven't, so this is good.
We'll be good friends though.
Oh
so
yeah, always.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, I'm finding the older, like I'm not very old, like I'm only 36, but the older I get, I just find like my connections with other people so important, and I kind of really value them and hang on to them.
Yeah.
And you have such like a good heart, and like you're so kind and genuine, and like I really appreciate that about you, because you're so successful in your life, but you're not like you don't think that you're above me. Like you're very approachable, and you're, I guess, modest in a way, and like I can talk with you every time I see you. I give you a big hug. Like it's not, you don't treat me different because you are so successful. So it's really nice.
You're sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's you. I've always felt that connection with you specifically. Is like you're just really a genuinely good person.
I
and you
feel
have a
the
really
for you
good
too.
heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me.
Thanks for
the
being
book.
my guest.